Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode. In this one we're looking at apples. Apples are a staple in our diets, and so I thought it was a good idea to talk about it. I do have a few apples in my gardens also, so which I'd like to talk about. But going back in history, they've been around for a long time, and there's been some major characters that have developed, like Johnny Appleseed, who planted throughout America between the 17 to 1800s, and with all those apples in the orchards that he sold them to and planted them, he made cider with. And it wasn't probably until later on, when in the 1868 we got apples that are a bit more edible, and also good for cooking. And these were the Granny Smiths. So Granny Smith, that was a chance seedling, and once you got the seedling, it was then propagated by cuttings. And of course, these Granny Smiths are great for baking because they've got a little bit more of a tart flavour, and you can make all sorts of lovely apple sponge cakes, apple crumbles. And of course, apple juice is another thing you can do with apples. Of course, quite often what we like to do with apples is just eat them, and for that we need them to have a certain sort of sugar content and a kind of crispy sort of flavour. And there's quite a lot of effort that goes into breeding these varieties. It can take, 30, 40 years to come up with, from seedling to cutting to trials, to get these things to go. And one of the very popular apples, and especially in America, is one called Honeycrisp, and that was developed by David Bedford, 1991 at Minnesota University. And also that came with other varieties from that, Sweet Tango, like I said, Braeburns there's a huge amount. But if you look at this one here, this is a ballerina apple. So this has been bred more for its shape, which is basically straight up and thin. Great for small gardens. This is the Braeburn apple. It's kind of more of a tart sort of apple, and it fruits kind of a little bit later season. A lot of these apples, to maintain their size, are grafted onto rootstock. So that little joint there that I just pointed to, that's a different plant, and that plant there will keep that tree smaller, so you can get different rootstocks, and that can reduce the size. So if it's got no rootstock, then it'll probably get up to around about 6 meters by 6 meters, pretty big. But those rootstocks allow them to grow in most gardens. Now they do get a lot of pests and diseases, and mainly just probably one that is of major concern, and that's the codling moth. And given the name codling moth because it forms its eggs by small apples. Now I think this is a codling moth. I kind of was videoing and I thought, wow, that's in the right position for a codling moth, but I'm not 100% sure because I'm not an insect moth identifier. But I thought, well, it could be. So if not, someone knows out there or not if that's a codling moth, that would be great to leave in the comments. But you can see that what they do is they sort of bury in there. Once the eggs hatch out, the maggots go in and they cause quite a bit of damage, eating the fruit, making a bit of a mess. Doesn't leave that apple unedible, but it just is not pleasant if you're sort of chewing on a bug. Now there are various controlling methods. One for the codling moth. This is a pheromone trap which is partially effective because it only sort of traps the males. It doesn't get the female. So if you get one female that gets through, that's not so good. But there are other biological controls, which are the virus sprays and also the bacteria sprays, and that's the gauze bag which I've just ordered. So you put those bags on early on, and then you tie them up, and that sort of protects them from the birds and also those bugs. This is a one that I just found the other day. I found the leaves on the apple trees curling up. And I thought, what's going on here? So I unfolded it, and there was about 7 or 8 little maggots in there. Those little orange maggots you can see on the left, and they were like just waiting. Obviously they curl up the leaf to protect the egg, but there are other things that do that, like leaf curling caterpillars, and there's other diseases, but I haven't really got too much time to go into that. But those are that codling moth is the worst one. If we look at cultivation, apple trees are relatively easy to grow. You can buy them either bare rooted or in the containers, and if it's container grown, then you want to plant in spring or summer. If it's bare rooted, then probably you need it to plant it in the winter time. Now you're looking for good, free draining, fertile soil. Like most plants, they will do best in that soil. And you're looking for a sunny, sheltered position that's got sort of minimum 6 hours. You need that sun to ripen up the fruit so it gets nice, lots of sugar into the apple. And apples do require a chilling period of 500 to 1,000 hours. Different cultivars have more or less time. So you need, if you're in a warmer, temperate climate, you need to pick something like a Gala or a Royal Gala it does takes less, like the ones I've got. And so just check that out. But when they fruit after the flowers are finished, they form these little fruit. They fruit on the spurs and also on the tips of the plant. Basically, where the flowers finish, the fruit will form. Now you can prune out throughout the year, but generally you want to thin out the fruit when it's just formed, about maybe 2 centimeters, and you maybe take out a third if it's a heavy crop. Otherwise, it can weigh down those branches, even break them. And obviously, pruning, you can prune it to vase, or in here they've sort of just kept them nice and thin, or pyramid, just to sort of, that's just optional. So fruiting season, you're looking at basically from summer to late autumn. Different seasons, you can get different fruits that will fruit in those seasons. Okay, guys, that pretty much wraps up this episode on apples. It was a quick introduction. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.